Hey
Okay.
Arjun, nice to see you.
You too, Corin. How are you doing today?
I am good. I'm actually in LA in a slightly dull hotel room, I'm afraid. Otherwise, I'd be in my studio full of monsters.
Oh, that's sick. Yeah, I'm right here in Ontario where you guys shot the movie and we're snowstorm everywhere.
There's snow outside.
Yeah, tons. Um,
Yeah.
I'll just jump in if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it. Nice
I
starting
wanted
spot.
I wanted to start by asking about the research process for this film because the Aztec death whistle in this film is conceptually unlike a lot of other horror MacGuffins that we usually see. And I
Yeah,
was wondering what it was like to explore this concept with writer Owen Egerton and how you added your visual stamp onto this iconography.
thank you. Well, I'll start with the script. I had got Owen's script, which was an adaptation of his short story, Untimely. And when I read it, three things kind of popped out to me. The first was this sort of simple, elegant, effective, and scary mythology surrounding a thing which I'd heard about, but I wasn't even sure existed, called the death whistle. And so I was immediately like captivated, thinking, I haven't seen a movie based around this object before. I mean, I think it's mentioned in like a Ghostbusters movie, but so that was really exciting. And then when I researched it, I was even more excited and drawn in because it's a real ancient object, and it has a very sort of mysterious mythology itself in real life of what it was used for. I did a lot of research, and I'd been to Mexico three or four times, one of my favorite places, and I'd been to a place called Coba, where they had these incredible ruins, and I'd gone out into the jungles and the cenotes and things, and I'd before I read Whistle, I sort of thought I really would love to make a movie here about something here, and I still would like to. And in fact, if there was more Whistle tales to tell, I'd love to um, go there for real. But so researching the mythology behind it was fascinating, and there's a lot of different stories of what they were used for, and whether they were used for sacrifice, um, and there's images of death whistles being held in the hands of skeletons. And there's ideas that they might have been used as a battle cry to go into battle, and lots of different meanings behind the sound and why it's a whistle and the wind that carries through it. So all of that was something that sort of inspired parts of Owen's story in the death whistle itself, and the idea of something that made a sound that calls upon your future death to hunt you down. And that was also kind of a simple, scary concept that got to me. But also the Owen script had this sort of romantic, tragic sort of love story flowing through it, the heartfelt sort of teenage angst and romance, which was I suppose I'd always wanted to do an American high school movie at some point. And then the deaths themselves became something which I knew I could put my sort of visual stamp on in creating a series of elaborate and sort of outrageous death sequences.
100%. And on that note, a line that I really loved in this movie is Daphne's line, "You will become what you would have been with your last breath." And I
Yeah.
think what really works within the film is the rule set that Chris and Ellie become like they come across that helps to make this movie really memorable. And it really works like it gives a lot of narrative confines, but also it allows for, like you said, these very unique depictions and varied
Yeah.
depictions of how the whistle manifests. Like it maybe
Yeah.
the creepy grandma or maybe like the molten looking figure. So I'm wondering what it was like for you to have that freedom and play with the different representations of destiny and also just like these really cool horror concepts.
Great question. Thanks. Could talk about that for next hour if you like. Yeah, I mean, look, that was a big part of the thrill of reading the script that Owen had come up with and taking the proverbial bull by the horns and running with it and thinking, well, I love monsters and I love effects, and I don't want to show you something you've seen before as much as I can help it. So each one of these deaths can reflect almost a different subgenre of horror and a different type of mixture of techniques to achieve. And I want to put in a lot of practical effects and stunts and prosthetics and animatronics and puppetry and some visual effects and work out, where the visual effects would take over and try and present you with a series of sort of illusions that could shock you or move you or horrify you. But going back to your first comment on that was what was really behind it was fascinating was you will become what you will be in your last breath, which is, yeah, it's something that Ivy Raymore tells them and they repeat because it's sort of what they learn. This idea that when you're born, your death is also born. It's out there because every one of us we're gonna die at some point. And this idea that your death, the whistle
Oh,
knows the whistle knows what your death looks like. That was quite a chilling idea that I hadn't seen because if you think of a movie like The Ring, a cursed videotape that you watch, it you're just going to die in 7 days after watching it, or Hellraiser's going to call upon some demons from hell. But this idea that your death is out there and it's out there for all of us and it's sort of waiting, and if you're lucky enough to live a long life, you won't be visited by it until then. But if you hear the call of the whistle, the scream of the whistle, it will pull your future death, however that looks and may be, and it will give you its death, in the next couple of days. That was a kind of a chilling idea that I think is was also a special part of Whistle.
love to hear that. And with that, I've also read in the press notes that these two characters of Chris and Ellie were loosely based on people that you knew once. And I was wondering if you could elaborate on how that influenced your approach to these characters in notion to um, the film's notions of destiny and mortality in that sense.
Thank you. Well, it wasn't that the characters were based on anyone in terms of because Owen had written the script, and then I first got to know Owen after getting involved in Whistle. But when I read it, I was able to tap into, particularly for sort of Chris and Ellie. I was sort of like, how can I portray these characters truthfully? And my cousin Poppy and her girlfriend Amy, uh, well, both of them sadly died a few years ago. And but I was able to sort of tell the put my knowledge of my cousins' character and their relationship and who they were as two people in love into the characters of Chris and Ellie. And in a way, it was my kind of barometer of helping tell those two characters and their love authentically.
Love that. I'm really glad that you were able to bring that to the screen.
Yeah,
And I'll end with this last question because my two biggest passions in life are cinema and basketball. And I often get annoyed by depictions of basketball in movies and TV. And I
yeah,
read in the press notes that you guys got to shoot the basketball scenes on rollerblades, which I thought was really interesting. So I'm
yeah.
wondering what it was like to captivate that kind of like classic high school kinetic energy and then so quickly subvert it into horror territory in a very unique way.
That's a cool question. um, well, truthfully, I'm a big horror fan and I know a lot about horror. And I used to love playing basketball at school, but basketball isn't a big part of UK sport. So I did need some help when we did the basketball sequences, and luckily the producers were big avid basketball fans. But we got Dane Smith on board. I don't know if you know Dane, but he's a sort of bit of a basketball legend based in Toronto. And so I was able to call upon some great experts to help coordinate the basketball that you see at the beginning of the movie, because I was really conscious that I wanted to go in at a point in a match when it's incredibly tense and exhausting, and we're in the final moments of this match where we're going to meet our potential hero. Um, so I liked that you went from this extreme energy in a brightly lit space where you first sort of are going to encounter one of the deaths in this way that they visit you, and then take that energy into sort of the locker room and what comes after. And I really enjoyed the shooting the basketball match. And Bjorn Charpentier, the DP, is a keen rollerblader, so you can't really keep him off his rollerblades. And the basketball gym was a perfect opportunity. So there's one shot which, if you watch the movie, when you kind of see the feet of it's in slow motion leaping off the floor. Bjorn had been sort of following him, tracking down, but he actually went so fast when he shot that, holding the camera, he kind of like flew past and impacted flat out into the wall, which luckily had those pads that you have at the end of the gym, but it nearly took Bjorn out. But yeah, it was nice to be able to use a number of different camera techniques, and rollerblades felt fitting for the speed of the match.
For sure. Corin, thank you so much for your time today. I'm very excited for people to see Whistle, and thank you for taking the time to speak with me today and answering my questions.
Thank you, Arjun. Lovely to meet you, and
You
enjoy
too.
the movie, everyone else. Here
Thank
we
you. Have a great one.
go. Cheers.
Ah.